Whenever, yeah, you go ahead, Cam. Yeah,
Ready to
yeah.
rock and roll here? All right. Well, really, thank you guys for taking some time out and coming to listen to us present. My name is Ken Martel. I work for USA Hockey in Colorado Springs. I'm the technical director for our American Development Model program. And I'm originally from Southern California, so this is exciting. I love getting the chance to come back and be around hockey in my home state. It doesn't happen all that much for me. I grew up, played all my youth hockey here through high school, and went back, played in the USHL, went on, played some college hockey, Division I, went on, got into coaching right after school, coached Division I college hockey at St. Cloud State, Michigan Tech, and the Air Force Academy. And then I started in with USA Hockey about 16, 17 years ago as national team coach with our program in Ann Arbor, Michigan. This is Ty Hennes. Ty's another Pacific District guy, except he's way north. Originally, he's from Seattle. Spent most of his time there, went back, played in New England, played some hockey in USHL, got a scholarship to Boston College, played at Boston College. Went on, played a few years professionally afterwards, and then he was done playing, went to medical school to become a doctor. He is a doctor, but this is kind of his passion, so now he's not practicing anymore, he's doing ice hockey. So we might question some of the intelligence of everyone, but hey, you know,
common sense.
Yeah, it's good for us to have him on board. But so I love coming back. Like I said, this is home for me out of Southern California. So, and it's really exciting for me too because this is our first model program in Southern California. The staff, the hockey staff here, has gone through a pretty extensive process with USA Hockey to become one of 17 model programs across the country. We don't just hand those out. You've got a staff here that's very committed to doing age-appropriate training the right way. We'll talk a little bit about it for what it's appropriate at this particular Mite age, but what you could potentially look forward to later on. And this is where hockey's going in our country, as well as some of the other sports, and we'll talk about that. So the ADM's not just Mite hockey, it's kind of a development plan from our little kids all the way up to our national hockey leaguers, because Ty and I get to deal with all levels of hockey, our national team kids all the way down to your age. So anyway. I'm not a doctor. There we go. All right, so one of the things that I think it's important to tell you guys right off the start, that 100% of what we do with the American Development Model is paid for by the National Hockey League. Okay? The NHL and USA Hockey, we both have two long-term mutual goals. One is to have more American kids play, and the other is to have more American kids play the game really, really well. There's 23 franchises out of the 30 that are located in our country, and we're sort of their future supply chain, so to speak. You can't grow the game in Canada. There's no more rinks going to, every little town's got one. The game is what it is there. We're the biggest growth potential market for them. And there is nothing like having a local player actually play for the pro franchise. We now have LA born and raised players that have played for the Kings, that have played for the Ducks. We've had Nashville born and raised players play for the Nashville Predators. It used to be that if you weren't from the 3Ms, Michigan, Minnesota, Massachusetts, no one really thought you could play. Well, this is exciting for me because California used to be looked at as sort of a non-traditional hockey area, a real outlier, and now everybody expects that there are good players here at all levels. From the NHL to college hockey to everybody knows there are great players in California that can play the game at the highest levels. So you're no longer outliers here anymore. It's expected that kids from these areas are going to go on and do really well in our sport. So our American Development Model is, like I said, fully funded. Everything that we do, the support that we give your club, it's directly coming from the National Hockey League because they believe that this is the best development method to help them put more players to the top level of the sport. And a few years ago when we first started looking at, this is something new, it's a little bit of a change for us in our sport culture, so we had to have a little bit of an impetus to say, why do we need the change, right? What I want you to take a look at, these are all the countries that played, well, this is going back a little bit. Ty has a more updated slide, but this is from the 2010 Olympics, okay, so one quad ago. And these are the youth enrollment numbers for each of these countries, okay? And we have our 4 top, most densely hockey populated states up here as well. But 70% of the youth hockey players in the world play here in North America. Yet, year in and year out, Russia, Sweden, Finland, I mean, our Olympic team lost to Finland, right? And that team's filled with National Hockey League players. Only half of Finland's team was made up of NHLers. The other half play in their pro leagues. So we got some great players, but how come we struggle with some of these teams? If Minnesota was its own hockey playing country, they would be the 4th largest hockey playing nation in the world. Yet we know that we can't field a team from Minnesota that can beat the Czech Republic on a regular basis. We don't do it with our own senior men's national teams. So what are they doing in our sport with smaller numbers of players to produce lots and lots of really good players that can excel? And here, us in Canada have huge numbers of players, and we have good ones, but for the volume of players that we have, we probably don't have enough. And what people don't really realize is there's a whole lot of, you look at the NHL and there's a lot of Canadians in the league, and there's a lot of Americans and all, but there are other pro leagues around the world that have just as good of players that aren't playing in the NHL for a lot of reasons. Anyway, so we look at this and say, okay, well, could we be doing better? What is it that they're doing that maybe fits us a little bit? And if you look around the United States, and all of these things right here, I don't know if your kids are playing other sports, but part of my job with USA Hockey is I sit on the United States Olympic Committee's Athlete Development Group. Okay, so I converse with athlete development, player development experts in other sports as well as ice hockey. And you could swap out hockey right here, and put in baseball, put in basketball, every other sport. It's sort of an American cultural thing right now, but we're imposing adult competition models on our little kids. Players undertrain, overcompete. We're more interested in traveling around playing games than actually working with our kids to help them develop and be better. Immediate outcome, this is our culture, right? We're a little bit more instant gratification right now, right? Windows of trainability, and we're going to talk about that, but the sports science shows us that we've been doing some things a little bit wrong in the past, just on child growth, development, etc., that we can take advantage of. And then, if we're missing out on some of these things, we can't really catch up with our kids. A 9-year-old's only a 9-year-old once. Your 7-year-old's only a 7-year-old once, and there's certain things that they need at that particular time before they can progress on to some other things. And that's what we're going to sort of talk about. And if you want to talk about our youth sport culture a little bit, this is ice hockey as well as some of the others, but we tend to over-control our kids, master puppeteers. The coaches, we're yelling from the bench trying to get players to do things on the ice, and they'll go and they'll do it, but they don't really understand why. A little bit of analysis to paralysis with them. No average 9-year-olds allowed, right? We're going to cut kids. We're going to tell a bunch of 9-year-olds or 8-year-olds or whatever, well, you're no good, you're good, at ages when nobody knows. Nobody knows who's going to be good at those ages. If you're the best mite, that's not a guarantee that you're going to be the best midget player. And usually it doesn't work out because they don't stick with it, or there's a lot of different factors that go into it. But we tend to run around trying to form super teams at too young an age and think that that's the way to develop players. And it's not. And then the scoreboard takes precedence. So we start to do things as adults to manage the games, instead of letting the kids decide to go out, play, have some fun and some enjoyment at these younger ages. Competition's good. We want kids, when they go on the ice, to compete hard, play hard, try to win, but as adults sometimes take ourselves out of it. Because, at 8 or 9, for example, kids are on the ice for a shift, and it's late in the game, and your team's up by a goal. Well, if they've only been out there for 10 seconds, and the coach decides, well, I'm going to put my best players on and pull those kids up, it doesn't take but once or twice for you to have sent the signal to some kids that, well, you're not very good, and we think you are. At an age when that's all meaningless. There are a lot of factors. Usually the kids that are good young tend to be born in January, February, March. A relative age effect. Those kids have just been in their bodies a little longer. They're 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, maybe older than some other kids. So they're a little more coordinated, a little stronger, a little more powerful, and it all doesn't shake out till everybody goes through puberty. So patience is kind of the game here. So we've adopted long-term athlete development principles. A lot of this has been around for a very long time. We've just been really slow to apply it to ice hockey. And this just shows that USA Hockey has a progression. It's backed by the NHL, backed by the US Olympic Committee, etc. But in our culture, we try and take our 6-year-olds and make them train like they're 12-year-olds, or our 12-year-olds like they're 18U players. And we tend to push things along a little bit too fast for our kids in terms of the competition structure, running around playing games on a Tuesday night that cross town when we could be practicing. A little bit more practice versus a little bit more play games at those ages. So this is something that's kind of exciting, and I'm really happy to show this to you. It's not public yet, but the US Olympic Committee has adopted the ADM for all sports. And what you're going to see, there'll be a big announcement backed by some huge money from a lot of different sports, a lot of different entities, but something somewhere around January or February this year. And they've adopted even the same logo that we've been using, and they just swapped out USA Hockey for the USOC, but this will end up being like US Lacrosse, USA Football, you name the other sport, they'll be adopting the same type of principles in terms of development for your kids. So it'll be interesting. We're very proud of the fact that we were at the forefront of all this, and we kind of got the ball rolling, but every other youth sport program around the country has looked at what we've done, and will be following along because it makes the most developmental sense for our athletes. So this is probably the most important chart that coaches, parents, people that are involved in youth sports should probably understand. And what we have here is chronological age here, and these are the average growth rate curves for kids. Boys, girls, okay? How fast they grow. And we know that kids, they start off growing when they're little babies, they grow really, really quick, and then it kind of slows down a little bit, and then they hit that adolescent growth spurt, bam, they go 4 or 5 inches in 6 months, and they get all gangly and get out of, whatever, and then they slow down to adult size, and now at my age, I just grow out, not up or whatever, if I don't exercise and do what I need to do. So, what we're looking at here with these boxes, and I know some of the handout material you'll be able to read and see what those entail, but there are 5 physical training capacities that kids are most receptive to at certain ages. It's the same with cognitive abilities. You guys all have mites as kids. Anyone have teenagers? Okay, what's your car insurance like?
It's gonna go up.
And
she's not even driving yet, but they want to start charging us more now.
You bet, right? Well, why is that? Well, it's because they know that at 16, 17, the ability to judge consequence is still not fully developed in our kids. They look like they're adults, but cognitively they're still not, all the way there. So it's the same thing at a younger age. If you take learning a language, for example. Now, we can always learn a new language. But if you expose a 3, 4, 5-year-old to multiple languages. They pick it up way faster than we do as adults because they're more receptive in how the human body's growing and wiring itself. So that's on the mental side of things. But on the physical side, there are certain capacities that kids are more receptive to at certain times. Now, all systems are always trainable. That's the beautiful thing about being a human being. We can get better and adapt. But if you're missing out on some of these windows, you put your kids back a little bit. So at the Mite age group, it's quickness, short burst, multi-directional quickness, which is in small area games and our cross ice play. And then suppleness, it's flexibility, and it's athleticism, it's agility, balance, coordination. Okay, they're most receptive, their bodies are far enough along physically that they can do some things, cognitively far enough along that they can do some things. It's the body's it's developing their own internal internet. It's the nervous system that's being developed through that time frame. So we want to give our kids and expose them to as many different movement skills as we possibly can. We want a broad base of movement skills. We're creating athletes before ice hockey players. And again, there's different things at different ages, but that's what you're looking for kids when you're on the ice. I know that you'll see that in the practices that the association here is running. Here's just a quick, so on the mental side of things and developmental for your kids. So these are some different cognitive capacities, age across the bottom. And you don't really need to know all the intricacies in with this, but what I want you to look down right here is prior to the age of 12, there's a whole lot of stuff that's not quite fully formed or not online with the kids yet. So, which means that you can, and you know this instinctively as parents, like there are things that you can tell your kids and either you've forgotten a second later, or their attention is, what are we having for dinner tonight, right? 2 seconds later, it's off to something else. So there's different cognitive capacities that they're just not quite ready for. So in an athletic environment, we don't waste a lot of time with things that they're not really ready to absorb till later on. It's one of the reasons why we're not out telling them, trying to teach them quote unquote positions at these ages. And kids are smart, they'll learn they'll adapt to whatever you present to them at those ages as kids. So if you tell little Johnny to stand here, he'll stand there, won't know exactly why he's standing here, won't relate it to context. So abstract concepts in play, they're not quite fully formed yet. So what we're trying to teach them within the small area games is some spatial awareness. We're trying to teach them competitiveness. We're trying to have them tighter space to battle. There's lots that are going on, but that's why the environment is a little bit different at those younger ages. At Mites, it's really play to learn. Get out and be as active as you possibly can. Because again, we're trying to wire the body, balance, agility, coordination. And then it squirts and peewee, that's sort of that 9 to 12 age, that's the golden age of skill acquisition, where they're most receptive to skills, all right, and sport skills. So where we start them off, and they're, again, cognitively farther enough along to where you can actually now then start to teach them more about the game. So we're not going to waste some time, valuable ice time, with things that they're not quite ready for at those earlier ages. And then at squirts, it becomes really learn to play, and if they've given them some good tools, then they have the ability to progress. But what are you looking for? Well, at 8U, it's build the foundation. It's that athleticism, agility, balance, coordination, speed, quickness, small areas, simple games. So we're teaching, they're going to build some instincts. They're going to build some competitiveness, cross-ice competition, like I said, play to learn. The other thing is the practice environment. Okay? So this was a study out of Charles University in Prague, and just to give you an idea of what we're looking at, traditional practice, one team on the ice trying to go up and down, and you're looking at basic core skills. So in their study, they watched 50 of those, they watched 20 station-based practices like the coaches here are going to set up. And what you see is the averages here a lot lower than up here. I mean, just take stick handling. 70 opportunities on average to 20 opportunities on average. Well, if you practice twice a week, for 20 weeks, It's 2,000 more opportunities, 2,000 more repetitions. So we know in learning, repetition and feedback are two of the most important aspects in anything. Whether we're in school, whether we're learning new sports skills, repetition is hugely important. So the environment that we're going to put the kids in on the ice is they're going to get multiple seasons of development versus the traditional, the way it's been done in the past. Skills first. If you don't have those skills, it's very, very difficult to play the game later on. And this is what practice should kind of look like. Now, we overdid it with this. There's 60 kids in the ring, 66 players, but, and we wouldn't suggest that many, but everybody's moving, everybody's involved. You learn by doing. You learn by, kids don't learn standing in lines. You know, we always ask the kids when they're in the room, we say, okay, how many of you have been to Disneyland? Oh, yeah, I've been to Disneyland. Well, what's the fun part of Disneyland? Riding the rides or standing in line? Well, we want practice on the ice to be a little bit more like Disneyland. You got to be involved, you got to be active, to enjoy what you're doing at these ages. So practice efficiency, and that's what these guys have been pretty good at doing with the kids, giving them the amount of repetitions that they need so that they can accelerate their development versus other clubs that are out there that aren't up to speed with everything. So why cross ice hockey? Well, if you look at the ice surface and you compare the adult pro player to an 8-year-old, for the adult pro player at 6'1", it's 15 to 17 strides, end boards to end boards. For the average 8-year-old, it's 14 to 16 strides, sideboards to sideboards, and the difference is attributable to limb length. So the cross ice game is actually the same size proportionally, pro versus kids at this age. And the way the game is played, most people don't really sit down and analyze it, but it's short sprint, coast, short sprint, it's sprint, blue line in, it's sprint, blue line to blue line. If you watch NHL hockey and how the game is played at the highest levels, that's what's going on. It's never, or very rarely, sprint from one end 200 feet. That's not what's happening. So it's the appropriate size ice surface. And we want competition, we want traffic. And we're a contact collision sport. On a full sheet of ice, it's hard for the kids to run in. Nobody has the puck for a long time, right? It goes down to the other end or wherever. We want kids always involved in the play. We want them closer. We want them to learn to bump into each other, because that's how they get a feel for some balance and coordination on their skates and the ability to play in traffic. Because the players that can play in traffic are the ones that can succeed at the highest levels, period. You give a poor player time and space, they can make a good play. Only the good ones can make plays in tight space. So we're starting our kids off in the right environment to help them play and learn over time, over the long haul, in tight space and traffic. So if you want to look at the ice rink, the most valuable real estate in the rink is this right here. Both offensively and defensively. Offensively, we're trying to get the puck in here, to score, take good shots. Defensively, we're trying to keep it out. In the cross-ice environment, you were always in that area. You're learning to play in the most important areas of the rink. And obviously, other sports, you certainly size their equipment, size their playing surfaces to fit the kids so that they can be somewhat successful. So athleticism, what are we talking about for young kids? Now these are 13-year-olds, but basically really under the age of 13, quote, off-ice training, it's not what we as adults think. We think training, we think push-ups, sit-ups, go run, get in shape. Well, conditioning is a waste of time for little kids. They're actually operating on a completely different energy system than we do as full-grown adults. If you want to get into the chemistry behind it, the biology behind it, we've got our own doctor with us to be able to fill you in. But at these ages, we're trying to help them develop, to wire their internet, wire their body, their electrical system, their nervous system, to be better athletes. Balance, agility. Now there's strength involved in some of this too. Body weight exercises, but there's always a bit of coordination that's also involved. Some quickness, speed, and these types of things are fun for kids. You know, one of the problems we face is they're taking physical education out of our schools at a pretty rapid rate. And all of the research shows that more physical activity during the day stimulates brain development. Helps you be a better student. Well, these are the things that we're trying to do, help them be a better athlete. So these guys as coaches, they're going to try and do a little bit and incorporate some of these things into what your kids do to maybe make up a bit for what goes on or what they're lacking, because a little bit of time and effort put in goes a really long ways at these ages. 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Now, so we're almost to the end, and what I'd like here is, this is the last one. It's a little more difficult, but you know, some strength, balance. Okay, so I need 2 volunteers. No? Ty? Ready? No, just kidding. So that's what they're trying to do. That's what they're trying to help is develop some athletes here. And then on the ice, we're trying. This is an 11-year-old. Okay, and we're trying to give our kids a better set of skills. At 11, there's not a coach in the country that doesn't want that kid on his team, because he has the tools. He hasn't spent a whole lot of time. Ty can give you a little background on the kid, but didn't spend a whole lot of time, you know, running around chasing games trying to play on the next super team. Worked diligently at his skill set, and that's the player that coaches go, okay, you can come play for me, because they have the tools then to be really, really successful. So in this type of programming, these are the skill sets that we're hoping that your kids will have down the road, because these guys are going to spend some time working on this, and you know, putting kids in game-like situations where they compete, play hard, and develop. So that's a little bit of my spiel, but would any of you happen to have any questions that I can answer about, you know, mites, squirts, peewees, midget hockey, what it all looks like, what the differences are?
Just one thing I'd like to bring up about that last clip about that one player. He was a very skilled player at 8 years old, and he was in Dallas, Texas, very similar to what goes on here in LA. He was recruited by every top team, played 9U, 10U, 11U on the premier super team that goes and plays 75 games. His family chose not to go and pursue and chase what everybody else was doing. Well, this team goes and plays 85 games. They stayed in a training environment where they only played 35 games, but they practiced 100 times a year. So now players that were better than him at 8 years old, 9 years old, when it was 11, those kids were not even on the radar, because they went and chose the competition model over the development model. It doesn't matter how many games you play, or it doesn't matter how many games you win at 9 years old, 10 years old, 11 years old. Like I said, I was very fortunate to play at Boston College, but never once did my coach, when I was being recruited, ask what my record was when I was 10 years old, 12 years old, 14 years old, 16-year-old. It doesn't matter. Our biggest focus should be on the training environment for our sons or daughters at these younger ages. Because the more games you play, the less development actually occurs for your son or daughter. Because only 5 players can be on the ice in a game. So the other 10 are sitting on the bench. And during these critical windows of player development, if they're inactive, sitting on the bench, they're not getting any better. And that window of trainability, of skills, or agility, balance, coordination, speed 1, closes the more we're sitting on the bench. So these so-called super teams that go around all around the country and play more games than practice, those kids are going to be good right now, but when it matters, they've tremendously been disserviced by their coaches and hockey programs.
That's probably the average player in a hockey game, and the average NHL player, even the best ones, because you can go online and look at the studies that we've done, and you know, you can pick out like a Joe Sakic or a Brett Hull or some of those guys, and how long they have the puck on their stick, and it's under 60 seconds. It's not very much time in a 60-minute hockey game. So where do you think you're going to get development in a 60-minute practice where you can have the puck on your stick for 30 minutes, or in a hockey game that you've got it for less than 60 seconds? So developmentally through this time period, through the younger ages, we're trying to teach the kids their physical skills, as well as some of the positioning and spatial relationships and things. But they'll learn the game much easier, much faster if they have the technical skills. I always get the question, well, how come, you know, we didn't practice, you know, 5-on-0 breakout or whatever? Well, so we can get out of our end. Well, if you can't catch and receive a pass, you can't break out. If you don't have the technical skill to be able to skate, handle the puck, make and receive passes, you can't play. So it's kind of the cart before the horse. The other thing is, it's also, you know, how we learn. We practice, and then the games are kind of the test. It's like school. You don't test, and oh, we're going to study once, right? You go through repetitions and practice and repeat things, and then you take the test. So it's just good developmental principles.
So do we have any questions? Because if we don't, we go around and deal with 305,000 youth hockey players every year. To parents, we have to deal with 610,000 opinions. Do we have any questions in here? If not, we have kind of the top 5 questions that are usually asked when we're dealing with Mite hockey. Anything specific to California? Anyone want to throw out there? If not, we'll start right here.
What about the mental aspect? Getting the kids to develop the confidence that goes along with those physical skills. Is there anything specific that we can be done that way?
Wait, first off, your coaches are going to be very positive. They're going to be very encouraging. Failure is okay. We learn from failure. And some kids, they don't like to overexert themselves and take risks. So the coaches here, part of the plan is you're not going to hear them yelling and screaming from the bench, because when you do that to kids, you know, they become paralyzed at these younger ages. So the coaches are going to be very positive. They're going to get confidence and encouraging. Hey, go get that puck. Go compete hard, because that's what you're going to try and learn at Mites is really, there's the puck. Go win that one-on-one battle. Go compete hard, because in sports are all about competition, but it starts with the internal motivation to go and compete and play hard and win that one-on-one battle before we start worrying about winning the hockey game. Because if you listen to the NHL coaches, did anyone listen to their interviews after games and on SportsCenter or where they all of them, every single one, they don't talk about, well, we had a good 1-2-2 forecheck tonight. They talk about, well, we competed, we won loose puck battles, I thought our guys competed hard, because that's what it is. It's those small elements that make the success in the game. So that's what they're going to do, and these coaches are pretty versed at being positive, encouraging at these ages. And you know what? They'll make corrections, but they'll do it in a way that isn't going to, you know, destroy a kid's confidence, you know. And that's what you're going to get, because I guarantee you guys are going to go. Most of what you're going to do is right here against your, you know, in-house and around at Mites. I mean, you'll play some other programs and stuff, but when your kids get to squirts and on, you're going to travel around, all around LA, and your kids are going to play games, and you're going to hear some wackos that are on they're screaming and yelling, telling kids where to go on the rink, what to do, and you'll watch the other kids are either paralyzed or their confidence isn't there enough to advance, and your coaches here are pretty versed. This is one of the things that we looked at as a national governing body. Before we go out and say this is a club that can be a model program, for us it's hugely important that they have the right background in working with children. Let's face it, you know, our children are our greatest resource. You know, and it's unfortunate that most people will do more research on who's going to remodel their home than they will on who's going to be their coach and work with their kids, their most precious resource. And we can tell you that we've done our homework on the people that are in this club, and USA Hockey as a national governing body has given our stamp of approval to what they do. So I think that's important.
How many clubs applied from California or from this area to get into ADM?
So I'm the regional manager for the Pacific District and Rocky Mountain District. So I'm responsible for player development from Texas to Alaska. I probably have 30 or 40 associations that inquire every year. Our message, we go and we'll spend time with them, with their hockey leaders, their board, to see if they're like-minded. And there are quite a few of them, I'll say 29 of them out of the 30, that we say, you guys aren't quite there. You're not there. You're not there. We don't know if they ever will. But that's one of our biggest messages with this program here is, first of all, they've made the commitment to your kids. They've made the commitment to provide the best sports experience, the best programming in hockey, taking advantage of the most current and advanced research methods for your sons or daughters. They've made the commitment to you and your kids. Now we make the commitment to the association here to provide them with every resource for the benefit of your son or daughter with it. Yes, there are a lot of clubs that apply, but we've only 17 have been approved.
Nationally.
So when you apply, you have to reapply every year, or is that something that stands, that's ongoing?
We haven't had a reapplication process because the number is still fairly manageable, and we're around. Like, you'll see our staff, different people from our staff come through on a somewhat regular basis. So if things were to, we haven't had anyone deviate because they're all having so much success. You know, teams that 1 or 2 years now in, you know, they're starting to win state championships, and you know, they're having more success on the. We never promise success on the scoreboard. We don't talk about it because that's kind of takes care of itself down the road. And some of our model programs take their lumps early because they're not working on some short-term things. They're taking a long-term approach with the kids. But it's like one of the clubs in Colorado that we work with. You know, those kids that started as mites and squirts are now peewees and first-year Bantam, and you know they won the Pee Wee A state championship, the Pee Wee B state championship, the Bantam B state championship. You know, but it's a process, right? So, you know, we haven't had anybody say this isn't a really good thing, and
Sure.
so I guess we'll cross that bridge when it comes to it. But I don't foresee us ever having to kind of take it away. But
You have anything else? I'm ready for.
You guys mentioned 17 out of the entire nation.
yep.
Is it meant to be kept exclusive, or would you want to see that really expand? Do you provide like a benchmark for them to kind of build
We
towards
would
that goal?
look. We would love for every association in the country to be as committed and to do this, but you know that's not society either. You know, everybody takes there are people that take shortcuts. There are people in youth sport that aren't necessarily in it for all the right reasons. Like, this is just, so we would love to see everybody do that, but we've kind of set the bar pretty high because we want the standard to be really high.
Do you guys provide a framework to build to that level?
Yeah, we try to. And people that call us, you know, and say, look, we're interested, how do we go about this process? Then we go through an interview process with them. We, you know, evaluating their coaches, evaluating their staff, what their track record of what they're doing, and then saying, okay, well, you're deficient here, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to work on. And it becomes a bit of a partnership between USA Hockey and that local club. We have 2,500 local associations in the United States that we have dealings with, but only 17, not all of them are youth programs. We have some adult programs, we have, you know, but about 1,800 youth programs. So, you know, we're out, we work with those, and we're trying to get more to the highest standard we possibly can. And the clubs that are out of that 17, they're all different sizes. One club has got 1,250 kids in it, and we've got one that has 200 kids in it, and everywhere in between. So, you know. Some questions, Ty? Top 5 questions?
I'm a 2007 player this season. Do I really have to play cross ice again next season? Aren't I going to fall behind because I'm not playing full ice real hockey? Oh, you man, this
Well, many of the best players in the NHL, this is the environment that they grew up playing in. It provides them with an age-appropriate playing surface. Again, we come back to the cognitive development of our players, what they're capable of. You know, what we want them to learn, and we want them to be athletic. We want them to stop, start, change direction. They're going to handle the puck more often. They're gonna get more puck touches in that hockey game. They're gonna make more hockey decisions in that small surface game. They're gonna stop, start, change directions about 5 times more often. So all the core skills in the hockey process, development process, they're gonna get more repetitions at, whether it's decisions, whether it's physical skills, in the small ice environment. That's the appropriate surface for kids at that age. And, you know, it's where many of our best NHLers got their start doing that, so. And they play it usually through,
on the question.
through 10.
Perfect.
But-
So not every kid though, mentally or physically maybe.
That's right.
But from what I understand under the model program is there's no opportunity for a kid to potentially play up.
Mhm.
So, you know, there might be a kid that's either a lot bigger or a lot more advanced. And
Perfect,
kinda
that's
going-
question number 2.
Yeah.
Can I quote you on? My kid is the best player on the ice. Isn't he going to get worse by practicing with the lower level players? Should he move up a level if he's already the best?
Or play in that cross-ice environment. Well, if you're the best player and you're in a full ice environment, you end up skating around everybody else. You don't actually have to make hockey decisions on the bigger sheet. There's too much space for the kids. So keeping our best players in that smaller competitive environment means that, like, now I can't skate around everybody to get in on the net and score. I have to actually work my way through more traffic. And again, it goes back to the best players are the ones that are going to get to play, that can play in traffic. So we want that condensed environment for our best players. It makes it more difficult for them. The full ice game makes the game easier on our best players. That's part of the process.
So that's the other thing. So the sports science behind it, being an 8 and under hockey player, your window of trainability is that speed 1. So short burst, multi-directional change of movement. You are an 8-year-old mentally, cognitively, and physically. You go and move up to play squirts where it's full ice hockey. So your son or daughter is not recording the information in their movement patterns when they should be. You're actually depriving your son or daughter 1 full year of development because you're going to the linear game, the linear speed. The body and brain of an 8-year-old does not record linear information longer than 100 feet. So if you're playing a game that's 200 feet, half of their development isn't even being recorded. So your son or daughter may be the best at the younger age, but there's nothing that the full ice game provides as a benefit for an 8-year-old. When they're a 9-year-old, then their brain starts to evolve. We go into that next window of trainability. But they may be the best, but the full ice game does not provide more thought process, does not provide more competition because there's more open space. So having your best player go in a cross-ice environment where they have to beat 10 players in a tight space instead of just 1 and go in on a breakaway, we're actually doing a disservice to our kids, not only mentally but also physically.
And at 9, there's a lot of question that it's even a good move the way we have our age categories right now in itself. So that's something different. But.
All right, one last one. Last season we practiced positions, breakout plays, now we don't. Is this a step back for us? We are now losing more. How can this be good? Why don't we do systems and positioning? That's you. That's all you.
Okay, so what is position? Anybody? What's position in our sport?
Right, left,
Defense.
center, defense, offense.
Okay, well that's where they line up for face-offs. But what is position, right? It's right. It's the spatial relationships between the puck, the opponent, my teammates, myself. It's not Johnny stands here, Jimmy is over there. It's one of the problems in the way our game's been taught. We should have probably used the video from the college coaches talking about how poor the kids coming up through our system are right now, how robotic they are, because they've been put into, quote, positions. They can't really think and determine where to go in the play. So we're going to teach your kids, they're going to work with them a little bit on positioning, but it's really shape and space. It's, hey look, Jimmy's over there pressuring the puck, and do you think you need to be there, or should you try and get open? Do you need to? So, and at these ages, look, they're going to follow the puck around. They just do. Okay? I mean, that's, again, cognitively, it's the way they're not processing information, but their coaches are going to work with them. on spatial relationships, because that ends up being what position is. You know, when they get to squirts and some other age groups, you know, typically, you know, for example, defensemen, they're going to, in the old traditional way, it's, well, you're the left defenseman, so you're going to, when the puck's in that corner, you're going to stand in front of the net, and he's going to be over, and then puck comes in, then you can go, and he can come back. Well, what happens if you're the first guy back over here? You're the closest guy. You should go get it, and your teammate should fill in for you, because that's how the game's played. You're not so scripted. Unfortunately, when you teach it that way to kids, they're very literal. They'll go and they'll stand here, but they won't really understand, and then they lose that ability to think for themselves on the rink. And this is what we're trying to teach with the kids, is the ability to make judgments, make decisions, and be competitive. Because if they have that, and then they have the skills too, then down the road, they have a chance to be really good players. So.
And it's the biggest focus at 8 and under, 10 and under is on individual skills. So we run into coaches all around the country. If you have coaches that are focusing on running systems or running plays, that's a very selfishly motivated coach that wants to just win games. Instead of putting what's best for the kids first, and wins or losses come second. As an adult, we should be big enough to understand if we win or lose, it doesn't determine my value as a coach. So we have coaches that spend time, that waste trainability time with our players focusing on plays. That's a selfish, motivated coach, because when those players move up to the next year, they have a different coach with different systems, different plays. So as a coach, the greatest benefit we can have to our players is providing them with the skills and the training environment for them to be successful as they move up, individually skilled. Systems, at the highest level, the next level, coaches don't go out, I run for whatever you guys, it's a 2-1-2 forecheck. I'm not going out to look for a player that fits that mold of a 2-1-2. I'm looking for the most skilled hockey player. As you move up the coach, you can teach a monkey a breakout system, but do they have the skills to be successful as they move up?
And the success we're seeing with our model programs, for example, I can give you a number of different examples on people that are being successful, but one of our model programs is Orchard Lake in Michigan. They're a small club, they're in a small community. They didn't run around and recruit a bunch of kids from all over Michigan. They took their community area kids that they had, and they followed along with our programming. Well, they're, what's the O2, so it's their O1 team. Anyway, their O1 team ended up being the 6th ranked team in the nation this past year at Pee Wee. And I don't know if you're familiar with Tier 1 AAA hockey, but Honey Baked, Little Caesars, Mission, like those programs out in the Midwest and around that aggregate players from huge geographies, well, they beat all those programs. Just with their local little kids, because they stuck to the right. They just go out and make more plays. They're more skilled than everybody else. Took them time to get there, but those kids now have tools that they'll be able to go on and be able to play it. And the wins do come later on, but it's not because they know where to stand, it's because they can actually play, they can think.
They have the puck more than
And they have the puck more than the other people. And so this all works, very proven. And we've got other, unfortunately there hasn't been really great examples from cradle to grave in the United States, but we've got examples in other countries of clubs. There's just as an example, there's a little club in Sweden. It's actually really north in Sweden. It's Skellefteå. They have 40,000 people in town. Okay, so a small community. There's 300 kids in their hockey club. No cuts, open to everybody. The ice rink is in 6 months a year. They take it out, so the kids only play hockey 6 months a year. They multi-sport, which is what we promote as well. They're late specialization. They work on their skills. They play cross ice until 10 and under, but you know, all the way through. Hockey's not even the #1 sport in their community. Soccer is. It's the #1. So you know, we always get the our best athletes. Well, 40,000 people in town. So every year, you guys will be able to go through the NHL draft again this year. You'll find kids, Skellefteå, the local kids that are in the NHL draft. A couple years ago, they had 3 years ago, they had a 1st rounder, a second rounder, a fifth rounder, a seventh round, all local kids started in the program. They have a pro team in town, okay, that plays in the top Swedish Hockey League. It's probably about the third best hockey league in the world. And of the 26 players under contract, 13 are from Skellefteå. And that's not counting Eric Robland, Adam Larson, Timmy Erickson, they'll play in the NHL here, you know, that are in that same, from one little town. But they're very patient, they're very positive with their kids, they do the right things at the right ages, and things have a way of working out pretty well. So, great examples elsewhere, and what we're excited about is hopefully we have 17 examples of this going on right here in the United States, so down the road we do the same thing.
Thanks, God. Yeah, I think we gotta get the.
Yeah.
You guys think I need some support.
We'll
from
tie
you
all
guys?
of you around, so if you have some questions, you want to chat a little bit, we're happy to, you know, talk and